This is AMC's For Your Consideration, movie talk for movie fans. This is episode number 8, recorded originally on Thursday, August the 23rd, 2012. Who are the Guardians of the Galaxy? This episode was recorded live at the beautiful AMC Burbank 16 in Burbank, California. Thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy the show. Greetings, salutations, everybody. Welcome to this installment of AMC's For Your Consideration, movie talk for movie fans. As always, I am your host. I'm the senior editor of AMC Movie News. My name is Jon Schnepp. Joining me this week, I'm pretty excited about this, and not just because Roth's not here. Thank God she's gone. No, I'm only kidding. Roth's taking today off, and we're looking forward to her coming back. But first of all, sitting to my immediate right, he is Jimmy to the O, James Oster from JoBlo.com, a fantastic film critic that I read often. Mr. James Oster. James, thanks so much for being here.
How are you?
Good.
Again.
Thank you. And also joining us today, we got a special guest, which I'm very, very thankful he's here. Let me give you a little bit of preamble. We're going to be talking today a lot about the Guardians of the Galaxy, the film that is going to be leading into the Avengers 2 that nobody knows absolutely anything about. And I started hunting around for somebody who might know what they're talking about, and I was so glad when I started talking with our guest here. Sitting to Jimmy's right, he is the director of the very popular animated series METALOCALYPSE. He is Mr. Jon Schnepp. Jon, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, John?
Thank you so much for being here. Got to tell you this, absolutely true story. You and I have never met before.
Right.
And we only just started communicating over email this week. Last night, I had not gotten around to watching Morgan Spurlock's Comic-Con movie.
Oh, right on.
And last night, I'm back at my house in Corona, and my brother-in-law and my friend, whatever, they got it on. It's like, oh, cool, let's sit down and watch this. And we're watching it. It's like 2 minutes after we started watching it. It's like, wait a minute, that's Jon Schnepp. He's totally going to be on our show tomorrow.
Right.
Very ironic.
Yeah, right.
Listen, folks, like I said, today's episode, we're going to be focusing mostly on the upcoming Marvel film Guardians of the Galaxy, simply because most of us don't know anything about it. But I want to remind you of a couple things. If you're watching us live right now, and by the way, you can watch us live every Monday and Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you're watching us live, look to the side of the video and you'll see a chat board. You can chat with us. We've got Ryan back there who's going to be keeping his eye on the chat board. And as always, at the end of the show, we are just going to dedicate the last segment to taking your questions and your topics that you want us to discuss. So you can start throwing your questions and comments in there now. Ryan's going to keep track of them and he'll bring them up at the end. If you are watching us live, don't forget you can follow us on iTunes or on YouTube. Watch us on your television at home, on Boxy or your Apple TV or your Roku. 1,000 different ways to watch us. We're glad you're joining us. Before we get to the Guardians of the Galaxy stuff, I want to just run down the news feed here pretty quickly, keep you up to date on everything significant that's happening in the world of movies. Sam Claflin has been officially cast as Finnick Odair, the most significant casting to date so far for the upcoming Hunger Games sequel. A lot of people were speculated being in that, including Robert Pattinson, of all people. But the role's gone to Sam Claflin, a move I find kind of questionable. I wasn't super impressed with Sam in Snow White and the Huntsman or in Pirates of the Caribbean 4, but he didn't have a lot of a chance to show us much, so we'll see where that goes. Kat Dennings has been confirmed that her character will have a larger role in Thor 2 than she had in the original. Personally, I'm happy about that.
Finally.
Yeah,
excellent. That's the news that I wanted to hear.
Who
doesn't love Kat Dennings?
I love Kat Dennings.
I don't know about Thor though. I didn't. I hate to say it. I was kind of annoyed by her character now.
Oh, I liked it.
Hey, I want her to do that meow meow thing again.
Meow meow. Jim Carrey, it's saying he is close to possibly being cast in Kick-Ass 2 as Colonel Stars, who founds Justice Forever. This would be an interesting casting. We'll see if that one actually comes to fruition. Speaking of Guardians of the Galaxy, right now word is that the only director that Marvel is currently talking to, this is the reports at any rate, is director James Gunn. If you have not seen the film Slither, you absolutely must.
See it tonight,
Yeah, see it tonight. Get on Netflix,
awesome.
whatever. I think he'd be a great fit for Guardians of the Galaxy, and you'll hear why. The sequel to Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which is, of course, the girl who played with fire, is moving ahead, but it's moving ahead slower than we thought it would. Apparently, it's not going to be coming out until the earliest, mid to late 2014. Now, of course, the significant casts in the film are all signed on for all 3 films, but we have to go at the studio's pace. Anna Kendrick is said right now to be in the lead to play the love interest for Captain America in Winter Soldier. Now, this is coming from, hold on to your hats, a Vietnamese newspaper. So as far as credibility goes, we don't really know, but the reports are she is the front runner right now. We'll see if that actually turns out to be true.
I say yes, please.
I'll see Anna Kendrick in anything.
Yes.
Absolutely anything. So that'll wrap it up for the news feed. Now let's get to the real topic at hand here. Marvel caused a bit of confusion, stun, bewilderment when they announced that Guardians of the Galaxy was going to be in what they're calling Phase 2 of the Marvel movie universe. We've got, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong here, we've got upcoming Iron Man 3, Captain America Winter Soldier, Thor the Dark World, which will then be followed by Guardians of the Galaxy leading directly into the Avengers. Most people don't know much about Guardians of the Galaxy, myself included, which is why I'm not kidding. I got on my Nexus 7, got on my comics app, and downloaded all of them and read just as much as I could. So, John, let's start with you. Let's start very general here. Who are the Guardians of the Galaxy?
Well, I think a better question is like, what is Marvel's outer space epic? And I think it really actually began in the 60s with the Fantastic Four going into the negative zone and traveling all around into the microverse. And so they started doing these like epic space journeys. And so I look at Guardians of the Galaxy, especially the movie version, as Marvel's Star Wars. I kind of, if you look at it like that, I mean, basically you have like the X-Men, you have the Shi'ar, you have Starjammers, you have the Kree, you have Ronan the Accuser, you have all these crazy, weird, freaky characters from the Fantastic Four. Yeah, every single version, like the Avengers, they had Korvac, they had Thor, had the High Evolutionary who changed men into weird mutant animals. I mean, there's all these like interconnected stories that started out really like an example is one of the characters from the Guardians of the Galaxy, which I don't know if they're going to use in the movie version, is Adam Warlock. He started out in Fantastic Four as like this bizarre, weird, like orange dude that humans created as like some kind of experiment to make the super Ultraman. And this was an early Jack Kirby Fantastic Four, Stan Lee Fantastic Four. You know, they beat him. He was like, yo, I'm out of here. He went to outer space. Cut to like, 10 years later, so like Jim Starlin, I think, was like, hey, I'm going to remember that weird orange dude? I'm going to put a gem in his head. He's Warlock. High Evolutionary was like, let me rebuild you, bam. Now he's got some soul gem.
Now, wasn't one of the gems that ultimately ends up in the Infinity Gauntlet?
Yeah, totally. The Infinity Gauntlet, it's funny because it's like a lot of characters from the 70s all had gems in their head. And that was like some kind of weird hippie thing. I don't know how to really describe. People are like, I got to come up with some kind of weird, like psycho-dimensional character. Let's put some kind of power gem in their head, and their brain emulates power stuff. Signals, lasers come out of the head. And seriously, like that's another character from Guardians of the Galaxy, the guy who became Star-Lord. Yeah. And a lot of these characters, the origin is almost the same. It's like, I'm some dude driving in a truck. Yo, an alien spaceship shows up and messes my world up. I get transported 1,000 years into the future. I have a gem in my head. Bam!
Describe my last trip to Vegas.
I could fly around, or like for Guardians of the Galaxy, the very first Guardians, it was like this guy was like, I'm gonna be the first dude to travel for like 1,000 years. He wakes up and he's like, he got strange. It was Gene Colan drew him, so he's like bizarre, weird, purple body with a mesh skin face, and so most of the characters in that very first Guardians of the Galaxy, like translated, 10, 15 years later, they just redrew them all. Like Gene Colan drew I think it was the guy from. I want to say it was the guy from Jupiter, because Jupiter's mass is so big. He drew him like this giant, almost juggernaut-looking, like squat dude, because over the millions of years, their bodies adapted into this squat, kind of strange, like slab-like form. So he was like a giant fat dude, and they're like, yeah, that look is not happening. And you know what I'm saying? Like in I think it was like 1971 or whatever. The first one, I don't know the exact years off the top of my head, but. Like the first one, like all four of those dudes were walking, on the cover, and it's like you got Crystal Dude, you got like blue weird guy with a strange living fin, you got giant squat fat man, and then you have our character who's now like Star-Lord. He was just like a purple weird. He looked almost like Parasite from Superman. If you remember that purple guy, is just like a weird face and just like all purple. That was him. And I don't think they even just mentioned why he had a weird purple mask, like on his face.
Star-Lord looks like somebody right out of The Watchmen now.
Now he does.
Star-Lord, I think he looks like somebody right out of The Watchmen.
I actually like the new. It was kind of weird because, growing up in the late 70s, early 80s, I knew the Star-Lord that was kind of like the first like sci-fi take on a character in the Marvel universe, where they were like, yo, it's not really connected to any of the other characters, and he's like in a spaceship, and he's got these weird goggles, and I was really into Star Wars at the time, so I was like, oh, it's another spaceship comic book, So, and so that was kind of, and John Byrne was drawing it, Chris Claremont was writing it, and that was like right before the X-Men. So I was really into all those characters.
Let's fast forward now. When I picked up, like I said, I hadn't read Guardians of the Galaxy before last week, and I picked them up, and it where I started reading it from was a very different team than the ones from the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
It was now Star-Lord, whose name is Peter
Quill.
Peter Quill, thank you. And the galaxy had just gone through a number of wars and huge battles that left the fabric of space and time very fragile.
Do you mean the galaxy just went through several Star Wars?
Bing. And Peter Star-Lord decides he needs to assemble a team that's going to defend. Now, in this incarnation of the team, which I think is going to be more reflective of what we're going to see in the movie, you had Peter Quill, Star-Lord. You had Gamora. You had Drax the Destroyer. You had Adam Warlock. You had, now this is where we start to stretch it a bit. You had Cosmo the space telekinetic dog. I can't make this stuff up. It's a dog in a CCCP Russian space outfit who was sent into space by the Soviet Union, developed telekinetic and telepathic powers, and is now the security chief of the home base of the Guardians of the Galaxy.
What do you mean? It makes total sense.
Yeah, it happens
and he
all
thinks,
the time.
He speaks telepathically, and he thinks in a Russian accent. Every other word ends with ink. And then the most head scratcher of them all is this character named, now hold on to your seats here, named Rocket Raccoon. Now Ryan, you got a graphic there of the Guardians of the Galaxy, so you can bring it up. Now Marvel put out a concept piece of art, and for the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Now in it we see Groot, who I haven't mentioned yet, who is basically he's an Ent from Lord of the Rings. He's an Ent.
He's an Ent.
And he only ever says, "I am Groot." At least in the comics that I had read.
He's from the actual original Tales to Astonish. He was like one of those monsters, like, I am Grorb, the sand monster. Then the next issue, I am Groot, I'm a tree dude. Then the next issue, I am Skimball, the octopus thing. Because they had to come up with like a different creature every issue, and that's where his origins are. He was like, I was some dude from Tales to Astonish. Now I'm in this movie.
now I'm in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
So we see in the image that Marvel put out, we know we're going to get Groot, we're going to get Drax the Destroyer, we're going to get Star-Lord, we're going to get Gamora, and we're going to get
Rocket
Raccoon.
I love that they're...
Help me wrap my head around this Rocket the Raccoon
Check
character.
it out. Like, all right, I was actually thinking about this on the way here because I was like, I never really like pondered Rocket Raccoon. When I was a kid, I bought those Mike Mignola, the 4-issue Rocket Raccoons, which are awesome. Like the inking on some of them, like he didn't ink them back then himself. He had other inkers. So I remember like, oh, the cover's amazing. Then, strange, scritchy, scratch inking. I just remember like being really tough on inkers when I was a kid, but still am. Anyway, I was like thinking about this on the ride here. I was like, who would ever come up with Rocket Raccoon? And then I thought about it as like the guy who created him, Steve Gerber. He's, I believe he's dead unfortunately now, but when he was a kid, funny animal comic books and cartoons were a big thing. They are not, don't even exist now, unless you want to count like The Simpsons, or it's like deformed humans or whatever. But I mean, there were funny animal books everywhere. The Daffy Duck, there was Mickey Mouse, there was like a billion different offshoot brands of like ones that you've never heard of. It's almost like Cowboys and Indians. Like no kids even understand about the idea of playing with Cowboys and Indians. Or like, yeah, I got this Gene Autry gun, worthless. It's almost like what baseball cards are now. Yeah, I got all these baseball cards. So what? What are they? That's weird. So it's like collectibles change as people die. So it's like sort of like, all the people who are 90 now are the ones who were buying, Cowboys and Indians. And when we're 90, we're going to be like, remember them comic books? People are like, yeah, whatever. Digital, weird, cubes, watching stuff. It's like, so Rocket Raccoon, I think, was born from that idea generation. We're like, remember all those cool, weird, funny animal things? Let's make a funny animal thing in space. Like one of his pal was Walrus. That was his name.
That's
Walrus.
right. That was his
sidekick. Yeah, like really goofy. And so that's kind of what that comic book was, and that's what he was. It was like kind of tongue-in-cheek, funny, goofy animal stuff. And,
now, correct me if I'm wrong, but
Omaha the Cat is one of the ones that transcended, but we can't really talk about that.
I like Omaha.
I like
Come
Omaha.
on.
All right.
Now Rocket Raccoon, correct me if I'm wrong, he really doesn't have. He's a raccoon.
Yeah.
He's not a giant mutant raccoon. He's a raccoon who has no superpowers per se, other than the fact that he's sentient, he can talk,
And he could bite you.
and he's got a great military mind. He carries big guns.
Yeah.
How did a character like Rocket Raccoon go from that era to being one of the Guardians of the Galaxy? How does that happen?
You
A
know what?
raccoon with a gun.
Yeah, I think they were just somebody was like when they were coming up with the new roster, they're like, man, wouldn't it be cool? We just had a weird animal in this. What about Rocket Raccoon? I think it was really like no way, and then they argued about it for weeks, and then it just somebody was like, just because you're against it, I'm for it, and then he got a bunch of other. That's my opinion. I don't know. I think it's good though. I love that I love that drawing that they released.
Yeah.
With him, it's like. It's going to be awesome. I mean, especially with what we can do with CG now, I guarantee you he's going to be the character hit from that whole movie. Like,
As
not
long
only
as
are kids
they-
going to dig it, but like we're going to dig. Oh, that's the Rocket Raccoon is awesome. You
Yeah,
know?
as long as they don't go Jar Jar Binks.
I was
and make-
actually going to
yeah.
ask it. Isn't
Yeah,
there at least a
that's my fear.
potential danger of him being kind of a
I
Jar
don't
Jar
see
Binks
it.
and all this?
I really don't see it because Jar Jar Binks is one of the worst characters ever thought
Yes,
of.
Right.
absolutely.
Ill-formed, almost like a racial stereotype right from the beginning. Misa Baba Gooba, like get out of here. You know what I mean? And then the other guards were like, it's like it's crazy. Like the Star Wars movies are so racially crazy. Like especially those prequels are like, oh, those are supposed to represent the Japanese. Those guys are the Nazis. Who's Jar Jar supposed to? You know what I mean? Really?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I don't think that's going to happen at all. I think this character is going to become like everyone's going to love this character.
Well,
if they do him right and they give him like a cool military, like tough little like I'm like a not give up type of character.
Right.
That's a little
I
difficult.
think that Bill Mantlo and Keith Giffen are just really big Beatles fans.
Beavers or
Beatles.
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 Yeah.
Rocky,
yeah,
you know the
Rocket
song
Raccoon
Rocky
is actually
Raccoon.
originally named after
Yeah.
like a Beatles song.
Yeah,
if I'm
that's
not
what
mistaken.
I just think they're really big Beatles fans, and they wanted to have a little homage to the Beatles.
So then here's a question I got. Understanding the Guardians of the Galaxy as you do, and knowing the 5 characters we see, very suspicious by his absence is Adam Warlock, actually, because he's such a significant character in the books. But how, now I'm asking you to speculate, how could we see all this translate into the Marvel Universe Phase 2, translate into the Avengers 2? Because this is the one that's going right into Avengers.
seamlessly. They've
So how-
set it
how's
up
this
from
gonna
the
tie
beginning.
in?
Cosmic Cube.
Really? Yeah. It's still gonna be
Cosmic Cube and the Infinity Gauntlet.
So you think they're going to go with both of those?
I think they're going to go with both of those. I think Thanos is going to get the Cosmic Cube, which will help power those gems that he has collected and create the ultimate thing of what he wants is to create death. He wants to join death. He loves the idea of death, and Drax the Destroyer was created basically to stop Thanos.
Now, didn't Drax in an earlier comic actually kill Thanos?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I thought Thanos killed Drax.
No,
Oh,
I'm pretty sure
yeah.
I read in the
No.
newer issue that Drax killed Thanos at one point. But didn't Adam Warlock also, wasn't he like battling Thanos at some point too?
Yeah, those
And-
guys were entered like all of those Starlin issues with like Little Pip and all these like crazy psychedelic. Adam Warlock in the 70s was super psychedelic and weird. Thanos was his main villain. So
Now, in the description that we've seen Marvel put out, it says that this group of characters, being the Guardians of the Galaxy, they have something that everybody wants. That's the description. Could that be one of the Infinity Gems? Or do you
It's-
think it might be something else?
it's either the Infinity Gauntlet or it's the Cosmic Cube. I think why go small when you're like, it's what everybody wants. That's what everybody wants.
No.
I see like they could bring the Red Skull back into Guardians of the Galaxy. He disappeared and supposedly he's we don't know if he's dead or not. He had the cube when he disappeared.
Yeah, I suspect we haven't seen the last of him
Right.
in the Marvel Universe.
I would hope, and I think it'll feed through really great. I think a lot of people were, I was like, how come not like Black Panther or, any number of other Doctor Strange? I mean, when I heard about Guardians of the Galaxy, I was like, that is just weird.
Yeah.
It was weird to me. And then the more I thought about it, it's like, it makes more sense than opening up with the Starjammers or like any of the other sci-fi characters. Like, obviously they don't own Galactus or the Silver Surfer yet. So it's
Right.
like, there's a lot of characters, it's like, what are they going to do? Yes, the other movie, The High Evolutionary, coming 2017. It's like some weird purple dude with a bunch of animals behind him. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, maybe not that one,
Yeah.
So I think it kind of is an interesting way to like get into the outer space world and actually weave the entire fabric of the Marvel universe. It's sort of like once you're in outer space and you realize, oh, there's all these different galactic empires set up and the Avengers interact with these guys, Iron Man, maybe not so much, but he's part of the Avengers. I mean, I don't know how they're going to introduce other super teams. You know, like right now, the Fantastic Four is over at Fox, and I think they have a very limited group of villains that they could use.
Right.
So we might see 3 more movies out of that. I don't know how that, whatever those rights issues are, but.
So let me ask both of you this then. There's been a lot of talk. Okay, we know Iron Man 3, Captain America 2, Thor 2, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers 2. We've been hearing, and Jimmy, let's start with you, and then we'll go over to John. We've been hearing a lot about Edgar Wright working on Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Where do you think that fits into this whole construct we've got here?
Well, I'm looking at that, and it seems they've obviously, as you've said, we've got Thor, we've got the Captain America, all the sequels coming out. I think they could fit Ant-Man either right before Guardians or right after. It seems like that's a good.
So you think
place
there's a
for
possibility that this lineup they've got set could still be messed with a little bit?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, they're constantly changing. Didn't they add a scene, for Avengers like last minute?
Yeah, it was different adding a scene and adding an entire
But
movie.
I really do. They think that. I think there's somewhere Edgar's Ant-Man is in the works, in the plans. And I think it's going to, in a couple movies, we're going to be like, oh, okay, they're that's what we're seeing.
I agree. I think they'll probably integrate it like in between one of the other 2 movies.
Okay.
Like they didn't mention Hank Pym in the Avengers, but I know that they shot a scene talking about him. They just cut it out. So that might be one of the deleted scenes on the Avengers Blu-ray, or I don't know. I wasn't there. I just remember reading, they shot a scene. So maybe they were like, yeah, don't even use his name at all. But anyway, I think he was referenced in a scene, but they cut it out. So I think what they're going to do is like, either they won't use Hank Pym at all, and they'll use one of the other Ant-Man, like Walter. I think his name was Walter Lang, the red-haired guy who's like, I'll steal the information for the Kingpin. Oh, I've got power. Nah, I'm a tiny dude. It's like they'll use that with the power of discovery. Like Hank Pym might be a little more like, yes, I'm small. Now I shall communicate with ants. It could be more exciting if it was a guy who's like freaking out, almost like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids in the Marvel universe. I mean, I think that, to me at least, would be, like, I'd rather see that than just, like, a superhero version of Ant-Man. I'd rather see, like, how cool it would be to be that small. And then it's a little silly, too, his powers. Like, he's, like, the size of an ant, yet he can punch with the power of a normal human. I always thought that was weird. Like, ow, my leg, like, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's like getting punched, but, like, people fall over. I mean, it's with what we see now, it's not as dynamic. So, I think going with more of a comedic aspect, and then also the pure power of like, I can command insects.
Right.
Like imagine that, like, 40 wasps on you now,
Right.
and not just regular wasps, the tarantula hawk wasp. Yeah. He hit 5 bullet ants, son. Oh, like bullets,
Yeah.
So you're talking about a lot of power that people don't really think about when they think about Ant-Man.
Let me throw my conspiracy theory by both of you here. Joss Whedon, of course, did Serenity. Mm-hmm. James Gunn, who they're saying could possibly direct Guardians of the Galaxy, directed Slither. Could we see Nathan Fillion jump into the Marvel Universe here and maybe be
Ant-Man?
I think
Ant-Man?
there's no maybe about it. I think it's very likely.
You think that's likely?
I'm hoping. Yeah, I think it's likely. There's too much. Nathan's so big in the geekdom. I don't know how you can avoid that. And he's a great actor. He you know what? I think absolutely.
I would say Nathan Fillion as Star-Lord. And
I didn't even think of that.
Michael Rooker as Rocket Raccoon.
Oh, Michael Rooker would be
Wouldn't that be crazy? His voice,
That'd be great.
That would be
instant awesome
great.
character. I mean, you're like, done. Marvel, listen. Whatever. Or James Gunn, listen.
All right. Well, listen, we're gonna take a break here for a second, and we'll come back with the mailbag, folks. I just wanted to remind you that this weekend the new Ashley Greene horror film, The Apparition, opens in AMC theaters everywhere. You can actually get your tickets for that film right now by going to www.amctheaters.com. This week, however, our very own Jennings Roth Cornett had a chance to go and sit down with Ashley Greene to talk about her new film. Here's their conversation.
So you play a young woman who's just getting started out with her life, who then gets confronted with this unknown horror. Can you talk about that, about how she may be wrestling with the side of her that doesn't want to believe, but yet sees it happening?
Yeah, I think, in the beginning of the film, you see her kind of second guess herself and try and kind of ignore what's happening. Maybe her mind's just playing tricks on her. And I mean, they're in a brand new house, so it doesn't really make much sense that it would be haunted and her boyfriend's telling her, you know, she's making things up in her head. So, you know, I think she definitely tries to kind of push it to the side, but then, you know, things continuously get worse and it's kind of undeniable. And, you know, then she kind of has this betrayal in the middle of the movie from someone that, you know, she thought she loved and could trust. And so she's definitely going through a lot of things. And it seems like, you know, no matter what she does, things just kind of progressively get worse. And, you know, you find out that this entity and this apparition just really feeds on your, you know, fear, and it is kind of just like watching you and learning about you. It's very unsettling.
Well, the fundamental premise is that just the power of the human imagination can create this thing. And it's funny because if we think about real life, we do have the placebo effect and evidence that we can sort of manifest things. So
Right.
where do you stand on this? Does this seem so far out of left field or oddly possible?
I think the terrifying part about it is that you never know. I mean, it could be possible. And listen, there's Ouija boards and all that stuff, which I personally don't mess with because it freaks me out a little bit. But I mean, you know, I don't think it's that far-fetched to think that it's possible because you know that there are people out there dabbling in this stuff.
So as an actress, I mean, working in a horror film, you obviously have to access different levels of fear at different moments. How are you tracking that? Are you looking at pictures of what the apparition looks like in that moment, or are you just using your own imagination and what terrifies you?
You know, well, whenever before I start a film, I mean, I kind of destroy my script and go over it time and time again and kind of map out where I'm at after every scene so that I can kind of reference it throughout the film, because you know, after you're working and you film out of order, you kind of lose track. So I always kind of have this Bible guideline to kind of tell me where I'm supposed to be at and what's going to happen. But when you're actually on set, well, the great thing about this film is that for the most part, one of the most terrifying parts is that it's something that's unknown and you don't see it and you don't quite know what it is. A lot of it's anticipation, and so I didn't really have to visualize anything like that. But then, yeah, that was the scary part to me. It's just not even knowing and wondering and kind of being lost and hopeless.
Thank you so much. We're really looking forward to seeing this on
Sure.
AMC screens.
Thank you.
I love Ashley Greene. I really do.
I do too.
That I should stop talking. Anyway, listen, folks. You don't just have to be watching us live to talk with us on the chat board. And by the way, keep throwing your questions in the chat board. Ryan's keeping track of them. You can contact us anytime, 24/7. Send your questions, comments, and topics to us at fycpodcastshow@gmail.com. Once again, that's fycpodcastshow@gmail.com. Send those to us. We'll pick a couple every week to read. And Ryan's pulled out a couple back there that he's got. So, Ryan, what do we got in the mailbag?
Well, from Rashad, a.k.a. Totally Cool in the chat boards, we have... First off, I just want to say that, Ryan, you are awesome. And you have the coolest accent ever. Actually, you have the accent, Rashad, but I appreciate the comment. Secondly, J-Ro, I love you, and your True Blood reviews are fantastic. I thought Anne Hathaway was a badass Catwoman in The Dark Knight Rises. She was the best thing in the movie. If you had a chance to choose an actress to play Catwoman in the upcoming reboot, who would you choose? Thanks, Rashad.
I'll start with this one. I'll tell you who I wouldn't choose. It's a name I've heard batted around a lot. I would not choose Angelina Jolie. And don't get me wrong, in the right roles, I'm a huge Angelina Jolie fan. This is not a fit, I don't think. I would also stay away from a lot of people are bringing up just played Black Widow.
Scarlett
Johansson. It's like, not really a fit. I don't see that there. I would personally, I'd go completely unknown myself. I mean, if it wasn't rebooting, I'd stick with Anne Hathaway because I thought she was going to ruin that movie.
Same here.
I did not think that worked.
She was my favorite part of that movie.
Absolutely.
I was saying I was really disappointed with Dark Knight Rises, like massively, just because of story structure, Batman becoming Batman twice for 2 hours, lot of problems. But Catwoman was my favorite part. Like all the interactions, the comedy, the scenes with her were like, which I thought was like, how does that fit into the Dark Knight world? Fit perfectly. And then all these other things were like, why is Bane built up? And then he's like this little crybaby at the end, dies like a punk, gets shot in a corner, and then the main villain like dies quickly too in a car crash. It was like super anticlimactic. Anyway, let's not talk about Dark Knight. But Catwoman, you're saying who should be the next
Yeah,
Catwoman?
that's the question, I guess.
Pass. I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough, right?
What about she's a little older, but I would go with Kate Beckinsale.
That's another name I've heard batted around. And you know what?
Yeah.
After watching, well, I've always loved her in the Underworld films, even if I've not loved all the Underworld
Oh,
films.
shame on you.
But the new Total Recall, I think she's great in the new Total
What about
Recall.
Jessica
she's
Biel?
fantastic.
What's that?
Jessica Biel good in that? I didn't see the new
she's
Total Recall.
I could see Beckinsale more than Biel.
Yeah, absolutely. Beale's fine, but it's not. It's definitely a more showy role.
The
for
fight
Kate.
scene Beale has with Colin Farrell in the bedroom in the new Total Recall was
Beckinsale.
such a sorry, did I say Beale?
I think-
Sorry, Beckinsale. That was such a great fight that I could see her as a Catwoman.
Yeah.
If they went with an aggressive, fight-oriented Catwoman, what if they did like a comedy Catwoman?
Didn't
Like,
they
I
do
would-
that already?
Well, yes and no. I think that was just an insane Catwoman. Like, I don't even know what's happening anymore. You know, like bizarro Catwoman.
Yeah.
But
I'm possessed by the power of the ancient Egyptians.
I would pick either of the two Community actresses.
Oh,
I would say
Interesting.
either of those two gals, the brunette or the blonde, Jillian or Allison.
All
I'd be
right.
like,
I would say Allison.
Yeah.
I'd definitely go with her.
I would say like do a Catwoman. Like I would just, since we're like done with Nolan and the grim kind of like strange Batman.
Right.
I wouldn't say go Adam West, but I'd say like, hey, let's go maybe Alan Davis, 1980s Batman.
I'll throw out one more name. You won't know the
Mike
name.
Barr,
though.
Alan Davis.
An actress I know who's in a new CBS show coming up called Made in Jersey. She was actually in a film I did once, and her name's Erin Cummings. She was Spartacus's wife in Spartacus.
Bitch slap.
And she was in the film Bitch Slap.
Fantastic. She's
I
awesome.
think she's got everything that I would
Yeah.
picture Catwoman to be. So that would be one for me. Anyway, Ryan, what else we got in the mailbag?
For my vote, I'm going to say Olivia Wilde. But
That's
Oh.
not
she
a bad one.
She almost might be too hot.
maybe.
That sounds weird to say. You know what? I take that back.
I'm gonna
no
slap
man should
you
ever
during the
say what I
commercial
just
break.
said. There's no such thing as too hot.
No, she's not too hot.
No.
I would
Go ahead.
see Catwoman if Olivia Wilde was Catwoman.
I would
I would
see
too.
anything
Yeah.
if Olivia
Even if it
Wilde
was like the worst
anything.
reviews ever, I was like,
Yeah.
I got to just see it for myself. And really, I just have to know myself if it's a horrible film.
Pretty
With
much,
Olivia.
she's just watchable anywhere you
Yeah.
go. So
Okay, what else we got, Ryan?
From Amy H, we have hello everyone. I'm a big fan of the show.
Hello.
My question is about Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier. In bringing back Bucky as the Winter Soldier, do you think that the part will be or should be recast? The rumor going around is that Sharon Carter will be Cap's new love interest in the film. Should Hayley Atwell, Peggy, play her own niece, or should a new actress be brought in, and who would you cast? Thanks for a great show. Keep up the good work, Amy H.
As far as I know, you don't recast Bucky. I mean, Marvel made Captain America knowing what their long-term plan was, and they're not going to cast a guy to just up and recast him. Now, then you could say, then what the heck is Chuck Boy doing in Thor 2? Well, that was a scheduling conflict. They had to change that character out, so that was one thing. As far as her coming back to play her own niece or who should play the love interest, we already mentioned that there's word that Anna Kendrick could be in the lead, but I know for a fact that I always mispronounce her name. Imogen Poots.
yeah.
Imogen. She's been up for the love interest role. Felicity Jones has been up for the love interest role, and of course Anna Kendrick. So I don't think you're going to see her coming back to play her own niece. I think that's a stretch that you don't need to do.
Right.
And
I agree.
as far as I know, they are not recasting Bucky, nor should they recast Bucky. But that's my opinion. What do you guys think?
And why? There's no need to. He was fine. I think stick with whenever you recast, it just gets awkward, and it unless it's really well planned out and really done. You have to do it perfectly.
Yeah.
And
I wouldn't recast it. I would just reshoot that train sequence a little bit, like add a little bit more to it, because it felt like it was like see you later, fall away.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
add a little like before they go and do the train, the drop. Like add another like couple of flashbacks with him and Bucky
Oh, I'm
that we
sure
missed.
there'll be a
Yeah.
lot of flash.
And just
Yeah,
add a
I'm
little
sure.
bit more like after that train sequence, after they take out Arnim Zola, let Cap have a moment, They didn't give any moment of like any reflection of like, oh, that's my best friend.
Yeah.
That's the only dude. He's the guy that I looked up to when I was a little skinny, scrawny guy. He
The
was
one who
actually
stuck up
in the
for me,
army.
and-
Yeah, the guy who when I was getting beat up in the alley. They have to they have to build that up a little bit. And since they didn't build it up in the first movie, they have to address that, like, I think right away, especially if it's the Winter Soldier series.
I agree. All right, what else we got?
All right, next up from Nathan Z, we have, how do you feel about Darren Aronofsky leaving the new Wolverine movie and his upcoming project called Noah, starring Russell Crowe as the lead character?
I was totally heartbroken when I heard that he was leaving Wolverine. It would have been so cool to see Aronofsky take on a huge... But as J-Ro often points out on the show, Aronofsky will never do a big budget studio film because something will always go wrong. As far as the Noah project, I'll tell you this. I'm fascinated by this whole thing because whenever you get into any kind of religious stories, you're going to get very, very passionate people. You're going to get, whether it's from Jewish or atheistic or Christian or whatever, everybody's got an opinion. I don't care. This is a really interesting story that has epic kind of storytelling devices in it, large scale, because you're talking about a global thing. You got your heroes in conflict. You've got all this kind of stuff. And that type of a story in the hands is not going to be a Independence Day kind of glamour effects fest. In the hands of a director like Aronofsky, two things. Number one, no one's going to see it. Number two, I absolutely will. I'm fascinated by this. So, James, I don't know what you think about
100% agree. I do not want Aronofsky doing a Wolverine film, period. Because I think what makes his film special is that they're his films. A lot of times a big director will go in with a film like that, and there's so much studio involvement. So many people saying, "Well, you can't do this." That's not the way he works.
Right. Yeah.
And him taking on a project like Noah, absolutely.
And that's born of his own project. He helped write it, develop it for years.
Absolutely.
I think there's a graphic novel out of the Noah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there is.
But I was myself also disappointed to hear that he wasn't going to do the Wolverine, because after like a year or two of all that hype and like, it's going to be R-rated, and like just imagining what him and Hugh Jackman were going to do together would have been really fantastic, and probably the most experimental, coolest superhero film ever put to video.
The kind that will never get made.
So, but I have to see his reasons for leaving. Definitely, it makes sense. Like with certain studio interference and certain creative directors, they're going to get buck heads quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think maybe he just that along with the separation, a bunch of issues. But I think Noah, for me, as long as the animals don't talk.
Rocket Raccoon.
Come on,
the
why
origins
not?
of Rocket Raccoon.
And also, as long as it's not like pair by pair walking up the, here's two lions. They're all both walking up.
So
Here's
you're
two
saying you
chimps.
don't want Evan Almighty again?
I don't want Evan Almighty again. I want what I would love to see is like a really like brutal portrayal of Noah. So I don't know what he's gonna do, but like something like Requiem for a Dream, I can never watch again because it killed me.
Right. Yeah.
I tried watching. I was like, I remember seeing that movie in the theater and crying. Maybe I'll get it on DVD. It's only $3 because no one buys it because they're like, it'll kill you. So then I watched it again, and it crushed me, and I sold it. And I was like, it's an incredible film. If you've never seen it, you have to see it.
Please see it. Yeah.
And then give it to
it's
someone else. It's like The Ring. Here you go.
Yeah.
Just check this out. Put it in your DVD player.
It'll change your life
Yeah.
completely, and you'll never be the same. Never watch it again.
Yeah.
Fox has this. They have a little bit of a track record of losing higher profile directors from their superhero properties. Because remember, X-Men 3 was supposed to be Matthew Vaughn. He was on for the longest time, and then suddenly he comes up with some reason why he's got to leave it. There was another one that I'm failing to remember now, Darren Aronofsky. And I'm completely speculating. This isn't based on anything. My suspicion is that it was exactly the situation you're describing. I completely suspect, once again, not based on anything, this is pure speculation, that Aronofsky was on it, and the very first moment somebody at Fox told him no on something, he said, well, I got other things to do.
Yeah. See ya.
Yeah. And then,
Actually, speaking of the X-Men, I'm really glad that Joe Carnahan is not doing Daredevil and is doing Nemesis.
Yeah.
You know what? I loved Nemesis for
agree.
its insanity and just pure violence. And I was like, that Joe Carnahan would rock. And on seeing the sizzle reel that he did for Daredevil, it's like, that's not, at least in my mind, that's not Born Again. Like, that's not the best Daredevil movie that could be.
that
like,
could have been done.
The best Daredevil comic book that was ever written was that series of Frank Miller, David Mazzucchelli. That's pure magic. And if they're going to adapt that, then they have to get someone who's not going to make it like, super fast action cuts and exploding. That's not what that movie, at least in my mind, that was my opinion. Like, I think Joe Carnahan's an amazing director. I love the A-Team. It was
like
so
that
much
was
fun.
a really nice guilty pleasure.
A lot of people were like, "Why? How come nobody went and saw it?" I was like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
I tried telling everybody. I was like, "It's really fun."
But The Gray for me is one of those Requiem for a Dream films. I can't watch it again.
Yeah.
Remember, I have a fear of flying and a fear of heights, and that plane crash scene.
Nice scene.
Fantastic.
That movie just kicked the crap out of my face the whole
Yeah.
time. There's so much tension. It's like, and I told everybody coming out of it, I love this movie. Go see it. I will never watch it again because it killed me. It
I'm a
absolutely
glutton
There's
for
Liam
punishment.
Neeson, who's run out of things to fight, so he fights wolves.
Yeah.
He's defeated everything else.
That's
So
right.
he's just fighting animals now.
I'm a glutton
That's all
for
that's
punishment, though. I love watching that movie. It's
so good.
phenomenal,
It's so
man.
good. Anyway, what else we got in the mailbag?
Next, we have a question up from Edmund. Edmund W. says, "Love the show, and AMC Empire is the only theater I go to."
Thank you very much, Edmund.
Anyway, with all the talk about the Guardians of the Galaxy and a possible Ant-Man movie, why aren't they putting characters like Spider-Man or Wolverine or the Fantastic Four in Avengers 2? It seems like they're all more well-known and beloved characters than the Guardians.
Okay, you know what?
Thanks for putting up the show on iTunes. I work during the day and I can't watch it live.
All right. Well, you're welcome, and thank you so much for your kind words. This is comments I get all the time on our AMC Facebook page, which, by the way, you can like us at facebook.com/AMC Theaters. I get this question and comment all the time. Why aren't they putting Spider-Man 2 in? Oh, I hear Wolverine's going to make an appearance, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yes, Wolverine and Spider-Man are Marvel comic book characters. However, there's a difference between the comic books and the rights, the movie rights. Currently, Sony Studios owns the movie rights to Spider-Man and all his direct other characters. Fox Studios owns the rights to everything X-Men, and that includes Wolverine. And so although they are Marvel comic book characters, Marvel Studios does not currently hold the rights to those characters, and therefore they cannot appear in any Marvel film. So you're not going to see Wolverine. I promise you're not going to see Spider-Man show up until the day comes that Sony lets the rights to Spider-Man lapse.
Or they make a deal where like they almost put Oscorp in the
old
Avengers.
Hollywood, where the studios would, rent you their actors.
Yeah.
You can have so and so, but just give us.
That's a great idea. They should do it. Like
they should do it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Everyone wins.
They should.
There's
Who owns
nobody
Ghost
loses in that
Rider?
deal.
That is Sony.
And Sony also owns Fantastic Four, or is that
Sony
Fox?
That's Fox.
Fox owns Fantastic Four. Yeah.
So Fox also owns X-Men. They could do a Fantastic Four X-Men team up.
I mean,
it's
if
like,
they own the rights, they could do
Yeah.
that. But unfortunately, we're not unless something miraculous happens where the studios make some kind of really big deal, which has never happened in this genre thing. It's very unlikely because the dollar values we're talking about are astronomical.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. So that's why you don't see it. I'm sure the people at Marvel would love to put Spider-Man in it.
Sure.
There was a situation, speaking about Daredevil just recently, where Fox had the rights to Daredevil.
Yeah.
And in the contract that gave them the rights to Daredevil, they have to be in production of a new Daredevil movie every X number of years. And they were running out of time. So Marvel and Fox started up a negotiation where Marvel said, okay, we'll give you an extension on Daredevil. At least this is what was reported. We'll give you an extension on Daredevil, so you don't have to start shooting right now or lose the rights. You can start shooting 6 months from now before losing the rights. If you give us back the rights to certain other characters like Silver Surfer and Galactus. Apparently those talks fell through. Daredevil lapsed. Now Daredevil is back in Marvel Studios.
Awesome.
Which is really interesting. Be interested to see what they're going to do with that. But for now, no. That's why you're not going to see Wolverine. That's why you're not going to see anything else you guys want to add.
We
to
never
that?
saw Galactus or the Silver Surfer in any of those Fantastic Four movies, as far as I'm concerned.
No, we did not. No.
Yeah, I mean, Doug Jones is a great actor. They did a big disservice to him to like voice him over.
Why is
you know?
Morpheus riding a surfboard?
Yeah,
I
it made
don't
no
know.
sense. I think it was just somebody like, we need to get someone like from the Matrix, right? That's what the kids like. Just dumb decisions.
I heard Doug Jones's voice work because they were originally to do Doug Jones, who is the motion capture guy in the Silver Surfer.
He's a phenomenal
and
actor.
the voice was great.
Yeah.
It
In
was
fact, that's
great.
a real suit. It's not just motion capture.
Yeah.
That's like an
Right.
actual suit. It's incredible.
He did Hellboy as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
Well, he did Hellboy. He did he did some of the costume work in Guillermo del Toro's.
Oh right.
Pan's Labyrinth, I believe. I
Labyrinth.
believe he did some
Yes,
of the
Pan's
actual
Labyrinth.
costume work. I could.
I think,
Chopboard,
I
correct
think
me
he
if I'm
did.
wrong.
I think
Man,
he did.
Kronos is a weird movie. Sorry, go ahead.
Anyway, listen, that'll do it for mailbag. We're going to wrap up the mailbag. We're going to spend the last couple of minutes now taking you guys questions who are watching us live. Don't forget, you can watch us live Monday and Thursday at 11 a.m. So, Ryan,
Yes.
what do we got in the chat board? What are people talking about? What do they want to know?
Well, okay, if we want to keep this like superhero centric, we want to go.
Whatever they want to talk about.
I want to make this a superhero. I want to make this comic book centric. So let's go with how about Danny Matthews asks, now Snyder and Nolan are finally making Superman good, in inverted commas. What would you say to a later movie being based on Kingdom Come?
Oh, wow. You know, it's funny. I just reread Kingdom Come last week. My brother-in-law lent me his copy of it. I would love to see a Kingdom Come movie. Personally, I just don't know where you fit it in with their current plans at this, like in the next 5-year window.
Personally, I would hate to see that.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's a stupid idea. Sorry. I think the comic book is incredible. Enjoy it as a comic book. I'm kind of getting tired of like, I need to see this amazing comic as a movie. Comic books are comic books. You don't need to adapt. Like, I love the Watchmen adaptation. I mean, I didn't really even care that the squid was gone because in order to have the squid, you had to have the artist colony, and you would have to make a 6-hour movie. So I understand some of the concessions, and it was a really cool thing to see the comic book that when I was in college waiting every issue for, to turn into real life, and they used panels from it and everything. But, I think it's almost like Psycho when they did the shot-for-shot remake. You get to a certain point where you're like, look, there's a difference in, film and comic books, even though that was a film. I'm just using that as an example of like, let a comic book be a comic book. Then when you turn it into something that's media related, let it be its own thing. I think, and, a lot of people, sometimes that fails. Like Green Lantern is a good example of like, his costume was retarded. It was goofy and stupid and boring and strange. And like, the scenes on Oa were kind of interesting. Like if the whole movie was that, like they could have done their Guardians, DC could have done their Guardians of the Galaxy, but they screwed up. There's your perfect chance. That is your Guardians of the Galaxy. It's the Green Lantern Corps. Idiots. Instead it's like, let's focus on this giant-headed dude screaming all the time. It's like a David Lynch movie. You're like, what am I watching? Why is he in pain? Then cut to some weird, horrible love interest, really, really bad comedic, goofy stuff. Then back to some bizarre training stuff. It was like, movie was all over the place. I wanted to like it, but it's like, and even the design sensibility I found stupid. I mean, look, you want to change it a little bit from a guy who looks like he's in like, pajamas, like he's got the green outfit. So why not just use the original outfit? Because it looks stupid.
Yeah.
Like I've seen
Green
dudes
spandex.
dressed up at Comic-Con like that. It's like I'm Green Lantern. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Although I will say this about the Green Lantern movie. I thought Mark Strong as Sinestro. I thought they nailed Sinestro.
He was
with
awesome.
Mark
Oh, yeah.
Strong in
Yeah,
the whole way. I
absolutely.
thought they did that really, really right. I don't think the very, very end credit scene
Right.
made any sense whatsoever.
Now I shall become
Terrible.
the Yellow Lantern. Why? What? Your character though, you're a good guy. All of a sudden, now I'm evil.
Yeah, just like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Really
So
silly.
sad. So sad.
Yes, that's like, I think that's executive sweating it. We've got to figure out some way to make Marvel's doing all those like strange secret endings. Throw Sinestro in there, like. But I'm sure there were fights over that. That doesn't make
I'm
any
sure.
sense.
Yeah, there had to be.
I quit. Wait, I won't get my residuals. I am against this.
What else we got, Ryan?
All right, from Launchpad McQuack, who's in the chat boards here. Thanks, Launchpad. What do you guys think of the Daredevil sizzle reel? And do you think Marvel should go more 70s gritty?
I was just talking about that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. See, I'll be honest with you. The sizzle reel itself, I was so excited to watch it, and this is just a lot of cutscenes from Ben Affleck's thing with some Serpico music or whatever. I liked the. No, let me rephrase that. I was interested in the concept of a 70s era set Daredevil story. I was interested in that. Very curious to see how somebody like him would have turned that.
Luke Cage, Iron Fist. Power Man, Iron Fist 70s. Bam.
Yeah.
Somebody do that, please. Like Black Dynamite's a big hit on Cartoon Network. Someone make Power Man, Iron Fist in the 70s. Go.
Can I just throw in
That's
just for a
that would be
second
fun.
how much I loved the Black Dynamite movie? I saw that film.
hysterical.
I saw that 4 times in
Funny.
theaters.
Very
I laughed myself
funny.
sick every single time.
My
And-
favorite scene is when he's like running in the hallway and there's those guys with the eggs and he like purposefully knocks them over.
I died. 'Cause people who don't live in LA won't understand this one, but there's a place, a very famous place in LA called Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. And they got a Roscoe in the movie. He goes, what was it? Donuts and soup? Was that his original cut? Donuts and soup. Wait a minute, no, this doesn't work. And then somebody mentions chicken and waffles. You see Roscoe go, hey! It's like nobody who lives outside of LA would have got that. But that movie was genius. Overall, I wasn't really thrilled with the sizzle reel at all because I'm like, this just looks weird. But still, I was interested in a 70s style Daredevil. Didn't happen. I don't know what you guys think.
Exactly the same. It just didn't thrill me. I like the idea, but no, I not excited by it.
Okay.
Not excited.
All right, what else we got?
Yeah, and on a similar note, same character, different question from Emmanuel Hawkins. What do you guys think they'll do with the Daredevil now that Marvel's close to having the rights back to TV?
That's the question.
That is
like
that is
really
kind of
like
the
with Marvel. I had
issue.
to think because this is what was going through my head. Tell me if I'm way out to lunch here. What was going through my head was Marvel getting back Silver Surfer, getting back Galactus, whatever. They wanted. I had the feeling Marvel wanted the Daredevil rights to come back. Okay, so they got him back. I was asking, where do you fit Ant-Man into all this? What do they do with Daredevil? Do we see Daredevil show up in Captain America? Do we see? Well, I mean, obviously not. They've already got the script, but like, are we 6 years away from seeing a Daredevil incarnation? Do they work him in? What do you guys think they're going to do with Daredevil at this point?
I think television
Yeah,
is a
that's
good,
television
good
options?
idea. I mean, they've got the Hulk TV show that they're going to develop, which probably won't happen.
Right. I'm
I
with
think it'll
that.
probably fall apart because I remember when I saw Avengers, a lot of people were like, "Oh, the Hulk's gonna," and I was also like, "The Hulk." And then right after seeing the movie, it's like Hulk needs his own movie.
Yeah,
with
I
Mark
agree.
Ruffalo, just totally won. Those other 2 movies, they disappeared.
Right.
And it was like, Mark Ruffalo's a great actor. He really brought some cool, unique, new version to Bruce Banner. They nailed the Hulk completely. I loved even the motion capture where it was like after Iron Man had fallen back to Earth, you didn't know if Hulk was going to punch him or not. You're like, what's going on? He's just like all angry. It's like perfect interpretation. That's all Joss. He nailed it.
Yeah.
So go with his lead. If they're going to make a TV series without Mark Ruffalo, I think it's a stupid move. I think it's sort of like whatever your Hulk, just call it the Hulks and have like the blue dude and the red guy.
gray guy and
Man,
the red guy.
everyone who's not the Hulks, like have She-Hulk in there, like a hot She-Hulk, and make it
Star,
like
son of Hulk.
yeah, whatever. Like
Yeah.
it all takes place in Mexico City. It's all out in the desert where it's really cheap to shoot. Like
Okay,
Thor.
this is completely unrelated, but because Dennis is here and I can't keep this in, apparently it's now being announced that John Bones Jones will indeed now fight Lyoto Machida. I know. Sorry, that's just an MMA aside. Totally off topic. But Daredevil, where does Daredevil? You like the idea of a show?
I say
TV,
that,
yeah.
why haven't they moved into TV yet? That's a good question. I think they're already with all the movies.
Cloak and Dagger can be a
Yeah.
good TV series.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Oh,
that's one of the
yeah,
things. Like,
absolutely.
and I'm not even a super big fan of Cloak and Dagger, but when you think about the abilities to adapt something into like what a lot of people like watching on television, which are procedurals and these other things that something where you have a group of characters that move into new situations every week, that makes perfect sense for Cloak and Dagger. Also makes perfect sense for Daredevil. He's a
Although-
lawyer. He's a lawyer, and he's also solving crime, and he's fighting the Kingpin. There's multiple issues. There's all the elements that make a good TV show, like a courtroom drama, also crime procedural, that are in Daredevil that would actually work over. And here's the thing about movies: it's like 90 minutes to 2 hours. A TV series, you got like, I just watched 56 hours of this thing. It's like crack. I can't stop watching
Yeah, that's
Breaking
true.
Bad. I'm watching like 11 episodes. Game of Thrones, I remember I smoked through the first season. I was like, that's how television is watched now. Television is not watched per week. I don't even want to watch a TV show until there's 3 of them stacked. That's because I enjoy me and my girlfriend watch
I now
TV.
wait for
Yeah.
seasons to be done,
Yeah.
and then sit down over a weekend and
So
then watch.
Nielsen's
That is the
don't even
future of
count.
television,
Yeah,
of-
people don't
of-
even
of
understand. Like
ingestion.
Nielsen's, they're still going by this archaic, weird,
It's dated. It
strange
doesn't
way.
mean anything.
People DVR, people watch things on Hulu and Netflix. That's what's now. So people who don't understand that, you're like shows that are popular are getting canceled for no reason because the Strange Family in Idaho didn't watch it. It's like,
Yeah.
who are you and why do you have a job in a powerful position? Get lost.
That's my concern
know?
about Marvel going into TV, though. Is there an audience for it? Are they going to tune into an
There's
hour
a
TV?
giant audience, but you know what?
I
They have
hope
to be
so.
like Marvel just has to be like, look, it doesn't even matter what these hillbillies say who watched what, because it's going to get DVR'd and it's going to get downloaded. Did you see Iron Man, Thor, Captain America are all on Netflix? So people are just watching that stuff because they understand. It's like, get that on so that everybody can see it. Why hide it? That's the thing about Comic-Con. Let me just go off on a rant for a second. Comic-Con Hall H, it irritates me that they do not release the trailers and things. Like when I first started going to Comic-Con over 15 years ago, it was like you went to Hall H, you'd see something, a week later you'd be able to see it. Like not 15 years ago, but like 5-6 years ago it would be online, those trailers. Now they started making it where it's like, oh, we're going to just show only these exclusives. Like Pacific Rim, no one knows what Pacific Rim is.
Yeah.
If they let that trailer drop one day after Comic-Con ended, everyone on the planet would know what Pacific Rim is, because everyone's like, oh, what's this Comic-Con thing that I can't get into? All these people who aren't nerds, that aren't into this culture that we're into, now we're going there. But on top of that, there's the entire world that was watching and wanting to see what came out of Comic-Con. So instead you have a few panels that nobody wants to watch.
Well, this is the thing. One of the best examples of a film going to Comic-Con making a big splash was the first Iron Man film.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They showed it to the audience. The audience went crazy for it, started a buzz. But if you don't then follow up that buzz by giving the rest of the public something to see, because it was only about a week later that the Iron Man trailer then leaked.
Yes.
And then we heard all the buzz from everybody talking about it. Then we got to see it for ourselves, and it snowballed.
Yep.
And these studios are losing out on an opportunity. They're getting some buzz at Comic-Con, but then the buzz dissipates and dies after a few days.
They do nothing with
they're
it.
not
They
following
do
it up.
nothing with it.
Now, getting back to the TV stuff, I'm very skeptical about anything Marvel, especially Hulk, moving to television for one very, very important reason: budget and production time. Because the Hulk that we all love from the Avengers, you can't do him on TV.
Nope.
And here's the reason: you're either going to have a show where Mark Ruffalo only turns into the Hulk every 3 episodes, or he turns into the Hulk and you start recognizing. Remember that old cartoon show Rocket Robin Hood? Did you ever see that?
No.
And it was just really cheaply made. It was Robin
I want
Hood,
to
but
see it
set
now,
in
though.
space in the future,
That
right?
sounds awesome.
But what it was it was really, really cheaply made, and half of every episode was repeated loop footage from other episodes. That's all it was, because they had to make it so cheap. So you'll only either see the Hulk every 3 episodes, or when you do see him, you'll start recognizing patterns, because wait a minute, this is exactly what he did in episode 2. And I just don't see them being able to do something on that scale.
No.
And that's something that Marvel fans would be satisfied and happy with. I'm very skeptical about that. But anyway, that's just
Daredevil. I think they could pull
Daredevil
off.
would work.
Daredevil. They
Yeah.
could.
They could
would pull off
Daredevil
completely.
could.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah.
All right,
I agree with you.
let's. We got time for 2 more questions.
2 more questions. All right, change it up slightly, but keep it relevant. G-Funk in the chat boards is saying, where did it go? Speaking of superheroes, why isn't Pixar making a sequel to The Incredibles?
Will somebody answer me that question?
Yeah.
Answer that question for
Yeah.
me, and I will take you to dinner. Because look, I'm thrilled with Lion King coming back in theater. That was actually, I'm going to use the word
We
magical.
laughed, we cried, it was better
That
than
was
Cats.
a magical experience for me last year, being able to sit down in theater again and watching Lion King again. Loved it. I love watching Beauty and the Beast. I'm looking forward to seeing Finding Nemo in theater again. That's great. That's wonderful. You want to bring Monsters, Inc. back as a sequel? Great. More power to you. Where the hell is my Incredibles 2? It is one of the best films they've ever made. I'm not going to put it above Up, but that's a different type of movie.
Yeah.
They set that movie up for a sequel. They set that movie up that you could do a franchise for it. Everybody loves it. Why is this not Pixar? You're the best studio, not just animation. You are the best filmmaking studio in the business, period. I'll let Cars 2 slide.
What about Cars 3?
I can't wait for Cars 3.
Cars
Come
4
on.
and 5, then maybe Incredibles 2.
Yeah.
Please.
Maybe after that.
Please make The Incredibles 2 for me. I'll take it as a great personal favor.
I heard
Anyway, that's just me.
they're developing The Incredibles 2. Brad Bird finally was yeah, we're in development on
I have
something.
not heard that.
Yeah, so there's some
Yeah.
movement, but it's sort of like when you hear that, you're sort of like, so that means 7 years from now.
If we're lucky.
Yeah, I mean,
if we're lucky.
because it's like it takes so long, and they have a really great process of developing stuff, and they're like, oh, let's do storyboards for everything, and then let's take another year of making little maquettes, and let's do story testing, and so they have their
I'll be
stuff
fine.
works.
You tell me it's actually happening.
2027.
7 years, I'm fine.
It'll take place on Mars because we'll already have 5 colonies there.
Yeah.
And the Incredibles have been transplanted on Mars. They're taking care of business there. That's my
Seriously,
pitch. Incredibles
I
2
think
on
we're
Mars.
probably looking at 2020 before we see one.
Yeah, because we're not going to
No.
see Blade Runner 2 till like 2019 when Blade Runner was supposed to be happening. In 2019 is when the when the sequel's going to come out.
Now it's called a contemporary drama. It's when Blade Runner comes out.
It's nowadays. Yeah, it's now Blade Runner 2.
Hey, well, finish us off here. What do we got?
All right, last question is more of a personal note for me because I love the comic book The Runaways. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it.
My wife literally has the books right now. She's reading The Runaways right now.
They're incredible. Senor Nerd in the chat rooms social stream asks, in topics of Marvel TV show, what do you think of a Runaways TV series with Joss producing? I think that'd be fabulous.
That was in development. I know that the rights for that are in development.
Were talking about it.
Yeah, they were.
I mean, this is a. You know what? That is a title that actually lends very well to TV because
absolutely.
Speaking of Breaking
Very
Bad
episodic.
and things like that, it's kind of dark. I mean, the things these kids are dealing with, very twisted. Parents wanting to kill their own children. I mean, it's.
Well, I haven't checked it out yet.
Okay, it's.
Put it on FX. Let it.
Now, I've only flipped through the first book because, like I said, my wife just grabbed all of them and she's reading all of them right now. And my brother-in-law was telling me that books 2 and 3 aren't as good as book 1. Whatever. From what I was reading, it's. These are kids with problems. I mean, like with real serious problems. And I look at it and I almost feel almost like a Breaking Bad kind of tone to it. That is something that would work. I would see a film or a series of films of The Runaways. I just don't know that they have the public awareness that you could actually launch something like that. But then again, we're sitting here talking about Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
I mean, and also, honestly, who really knew about Iron Man except for real hardcore nerds?
I said for 2 years on my old movie site, this is a bad idea about Iron Man. He's a poor man's Batman. He's a poor man's Bruce Wayne. Nobody cares. This is a bad idea. And then suddenly they bring this guy on. I'm like, all right. And then suddenly they go, okay. And then they cast Robert Downey Jr. I'm like, that's inspired casting right there. That somebody's giving him another. Because remember, his career was dead at that point. Yep. And then I saw the trailer, and then I'm like, okay, I'm on board. But I thought it was a terrible idea. So who knows? My wife is calling me on my computer right now, so I got to shut this down.
Tell her I said word.
Remember, it all began with Blade. That's where all this stuff started. Because before that, it was like the superhero movies like Batman and Robin with Joel Schumacher.
Well, you know what really resurrected the whole genre was that Bryan Singer's
horrible flashback.
Was that Bryan Singer's X-Men movie? Because I think Blade came out and it was like, hey, this was fun. But then X-Men almost came out and like re-legitimized
for sure.
the concept of the superhero genre.
I'm just saying, like, Blade was the first one, then X-Men, then people were like, oh, then everyone was like, what is X-Men? What is, it's almost like when you first hear a band name, you're like, say it all weird.
X2 was, I think, also.
This is my favorite.
It's a great sequel, classic sequel.
Though X-Men 3 was probably my favorite. Just kidding.
Oh,
just kidding.
Until Avengers came out, I still think I still had X-Men 2 as my favorite comic book movie of all time. I loved X-Men 2.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
But anyway, listen, folks, we are at over an hour, so it's time for us to wrap this thing up. Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you joining us live, don't forget, subscribe to this show. You can get on iTunes, search for Your Consideration. You can search for it on your Apple TV, on your Roku box. You can find us on Blip, find us all over the place. You can subscribe to us. You can get audio-only versions of this if you want to listen to it driving in your car. Make sure to join us every Monday and Thursday if you want to watch us live and participate in the chat board with Ryan sitting back there, who would love to have a conversation with you as he sits back there so lonely. I want to thank, as always, Jimmy O for joining us.
Thanks a lot.
John, thank you so much for being here.
Hey.
When can people and where can people see your work?
Well, Metalocalypse is on Adult Swim late nights, and fourth season
Best
comes
show
out.
ever, by the way. I love that show.
Thanks, man. Fourth season comes out October 30th. I just finished like over 2 hours of special features that you will not believe what some of the characters do in these special features. The stuff you would never expect, I got Brendan to do. I was like, what about this? He was like, all right. Strange. So anyway, that comes out October 30th, and I'm working on Grimm Fairy Tales, the animated series. So we start animation this Monday. It was crowdsourced through Kickstarter. We raised $188,000 to make our own R-rated heavy metal Tales from the Crypt pilot, and that's exactly what you're going to see. It's like when I was 13, I was like, oh my God. Hopefully 1/10 of what, if I can emulate even enough of that with some of this new style, I think people are going to dig it. So we're premiering that in New York at the New York Comic-Con. I believe it's October 14th, or either the 13th or 14th, Saturday or Sunday. We don't know where or when, but we'll have a panel there where We're going to show about 3 minutes or 4 minutes of the actual pilot, and then we're going to have a special
And then not show it to
screening
anybody else for a year.
for a full year. It'll be completely done, but we will sit on it and do some remote audience surveys in Tarzana, and then perhaps change and fix the beginning and the end and noodle around with the middle and recast a lot of it, and it'll be called something different. But that's not going to happen with this. So, in October it's going to be done. So
Thank you so much. Will you come back sometime? This
Yeah,
has
for
been
sure.
great having you in.
Right on.
And I also want to thank Dennis Zen over there who runs the show, sitting off camera. Thank you to Ryan, and thank you to you guys for joining us. Don't forget to you can get your movie tickets, your theater and showtime information 24/7 at www.amctheaters.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and on Facebook, and by all means, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. That'll do it for this episode of Furry Consideration. Thanks again for joining us. My name is John Campia, and until next time, bye-bye.